before I tell you about myself, I wanted, because what you started off with was so powerful, right? This thought of being thankful. I want to give you a mad scientist idea. If you guys are ready for that, it's early in the interview for the mad scientist,
Wow.
but
I mean, this,
I'm gonna
we're getting it
I'm gonna
right
throw
off
one
the
out.
beginning. Mad
All right.
scientist. I got my pen and paper ready. I got this mad scientist
All right. So
idea.
honest answer is, I mean, honest thing. So think about this statement for a moment. It'll seem completely bizarre when it comes out of my mouth. And the statement is that being thankful is a state of mind, right? It's a state of mind, being thankful, because you can be thankful for things that you would never imagine you could be thankful for. So I'm going to say something and then I'll explain why. I'm thankful for COVID. I'm thankful for this. And there are a lot of reasons why I'm thankful for COVID, but and I could go on for a while about this, but let me just give you one reason why I'm thankful for COVID. What COVID has done is it has democratized work in the world. And when I mean world, I mean everywhere in the world. I mean Africa, I mean Asia, I mean the United States. I mean every continent on the planet. Everyone's been equally affected by this. It's democratized work. If the thing that was stopping people from working wherever they want to, just like we are on Zoom, right now I'm on Zoom, we're thousands of miles away, we're communicating, we've got crystal clear video. What was stopping people from working and living wherever they wanted? It was 3 million CEOs. So it was 3 million CEOs that at some level were not comfortable with the idea of having remote companies. They didn't know what it would be like. They had preconceived notions that were wrong. They were uncomfortable with being at home. They themselves needed their big egos to be patted by walking around the office and having people kowtow to them. Whatever it might be, it was something that was stopping work from being democratized, even though we've had internet and technology and Zoom for a long time. And what happened is that COVID gave the world's greatest masterclass to 3 million CEOs. All of them one day had to stop whatever the heck they were doing and learn how to run their businesses on Zoom. By doing that, technology jumped 10 to 20 years in a 4-month time frame, and it democratized the world. Now we have Pinterest yesterday canceled a $90 million lease in San Francisco and said, we just simply can't imagine that world anymore. So we're not going to build this headquarters when we have already agreed that 2/3 of our workers are going to work from wherever they are. So now you have this panacea that people have been talking about for years finally come to life, which is, if I love skiing, maybe I live in North Dakota, maybe I live in Provo, Utah, and I work in Austin. And that, people have been talking about it. 6% of the US workforce does work from home. About 12% of the US workforce works from home some part of the time. But I believe that that's going to jump to about 30 or 40% within the next year, because a fundamental change took place. And for that, and all of the incredible benefits that it brings to the United States, right? Whether it's, burning less gas, or, house prices not going crazy because people have to live in San Francisco in a 1-bedroom apartment, all of those benefits, and the fact that people now can live where they want and work where they want, which is an incredible blessing in terms of the quality of life. I'm thankful for COVID. I own 2 companies. Grow Capitus buys and builds multifamily, student housing, industrial properties, and self-storage properties, right? The portfolio is a little over 300 million. We have about 400-500 investors that are invested in the portfolio. It's in 10 states in the US. And we enjoy kind of having our feet in 2 boats. Normally, it's not, most companies in the US like us are either on the developer side, they're building stuff, or they're on the value add side where they're improving stuff. And we're sort of half and half. Half of our portfolio is value add, the other half is new construction. And we sort of enjoy that. And I think that construction piece obviously came out of my experience with building campuses. I did end up building more than one. So we ended up working on 6 campuses over an extended period of time, 10 years. And so that's what I do for living. What I have fun with is this second company called Multifamily University. And Multifamily University started off as a place where people that were interested in apartments could go and learn every potential aspect from a bunch of geeks. As you can imagine, given I'm a geek, I tend to gather other geeks around me. So people that were very kind of knowledge driven and data driven would come onto my platform, everything from lawyers to rehabbers to, the folks that basically are playing some huge role in multifamily with large portfolios, and they'd come onto my platform. And then eventually we realized we need to expand this because people really had started associating multifamily with commercial, and it's not really a commercial asset. And so we started talking about student housing and senior housing and storage and mobile home parks and, and all those kinds of asset classes, industrial. And so eventually Multifamily University sort of transformed into a place for all things commercial and multifamily. Now we do about 20 to 30 deep dive webinars each year, and over 30,000 people a year sign up for those webinars and watch them. We do live events. We teach boot camps to about 400 students a year that are looking to get into apartments. So they want to get into syndication and buy a 200, 300 unit property for 20 or 30 million dollars. They need coaching and they need specific instruction on how to make the legal structures work, how to raise the money, how to asset manage the properties. So we teach boot camps 4 times a year, and we usually teach them in the cities that we have assets in. So that way, when we do the bus tours, we're actually going out to one of our assets and we show students, okay, this is where we started. Here's the occupancy, here's the profit. And now let's show you where we are today. And we'll also show you a little bit about our path on that way, which, as you can imagine, is not always up, right? So it's sometimes up and down and up and down, and then hopefully back up for those properties. So, we teach those 4 times a year. Obviously, at this moment, they're all virtual. So we're teaching the boot camps virtually, which has been shocking because the student count has gone up a lot, once we started teaching them post-COVID. I think the biggest challenge was my first property. So, first property, I learned something interesting in this property. So we bought this property on the south side of Chicago, right? And the property was a few hundred yards away from where President Obama was building his $2 billion presidential library, right? And he was slated to start building it around 2017. And I was like, wow, this is not a library. I mean, Obama's a very popular president. People in Chicago love him, and he has all this money. So he's going to build this annex, with restaurants and multifamily, and of course this huge library. And he's already got land, and I'm buying a property that's basically, like 300-400 yards away. And then as I was evaluating the property, Tiger Woods, who's a friend of the Obama, said, I'm going to buy South Shore Golf Club, and I'm going to turn it into a championship golf course with my name on it. I was like, wow, that's great. And then I did some more research, and the richest family in Chicago, the McCaffreys, had bought the massive U.S. Steel, land, which is on the lake. And so it's a huge area, right? It's an enormous factory that's been abandoned for about 60, 70 years. And they'd bought it, and they'd spent $55 million paying for a freeway exit into that area. And so obviously this was pretty advanced, and they wanted to build 12,000 homes there. So I looked at that and I made a mistake, right? And my mistake was that I said, the area as it stands today, its quality is not high. But given that a president is building this, a superstar athlete is building that, Chicago's richest family is building this, I think that the quality will improve and all ships will rise. And the mistake that I'd made was that you can't assume tomorrow will come and pick up a property that's not ready today. And guess what happened? The Friends of Jackson Park sued the Obama Presidential Library and held it up for 4 years before it was approved. Uh, and Tiger said, look, until the library is built, I'm not building my golf course. The McCaffreys got into an argument with the city of Chicago, left their $55 million and walked away from the whole project. And at this point, it's still not built. So now, you know, I was left with a property and an area with a tenant base that was distressed, that was challenging, that was problematic. All kinds of bad things could happen, and all kinds of bad things did happen. A year after our purchase, in one day in South Shore, which is a small neighborhood, there were 3 shootings, separate shootings, 7 people died. Within the next 2 months, we lost 15% of our occupancy. The property was upside down. We were not able to pay our mortgage. So what did we do? I mean, it was all hands on deck. So I showed up in Chicago. My partner, who was a brilliant guy named John Mark, he showed up in Chicago and we lived there. We basically rented an Airbnb down the street from our property and we started living there. My job was to generate lead flow. So I went back to my Ukrainian hacker and I said, here's this property. I need to get like thousands of leads here. Nobody wants to live here at this point in time because of all the problems that are happening. So I need a very large amount of lead flow. Like imagine if I need 50 leads a month, well, this property, I need 500 a month. Hire whoever you want, but let's get the lead flow. And so he hired people that would write scripts and go into apartments.com and Zillow.com and Trulia.com and basically somehow get our posting more visible. We wrote dozens of Craigslist ads. We went into the Go Section 8 website and hacked that so that we had a piece of software clicking on the refresh button every 15 minutes to get our ad up and running. I mean, we did so much stuff. And then every single lead that was coming in, I was the phone call guy. I was making phone calls. So I made over 3,000 phone calls. I scheduled about 500 people at the property, signed about 30 leases to get us to the point where the property was breaking even. And that person, and then I hired a Filipino person. Her name's Michelle, and I've had her for 4 or 5 years for this property now. She's been there. She's then taken on those leads. She's processed it. The property as of today is about 93% occupancy, and we're close to selling it at this point. So, I mean, really what it came down to is that when you run up against these kinds of challenges, you have to be prepared to completely disrupt your life. And that's what this property did. It completely made a mess of my life for months and months on end. And I and my partner were willing to give that up. He even more so than I did, but we were willing to do what was necessary, to be phone salespeople if necessary, to make that property work. I think one of the challenges of having the big fat tech salary is that all of these, peers of mine that make 300 grand a year or thereabouts in the San Francisco Bay Area, we're all completely paranoid. And the fear that we have, which is very irrational actually, is that one day our bosses are going to say, instead of paying 300 grand to this guy, I'm just going to hire 3 young guns at, 100 grand each or 80 grand each and replace him and I'll get more value out of it. And so we're always thinking that. And as a result, when we are in technology, we work insanely hard. We work crazy, crazy hours and Saturdays and Sundays and really get burned out by it. And this is very common, right? I mean, young doctors get burned out in the same way because you're working way, way beyond your capacity, but you're doing it because you have a point to prove on an ongoing basis to justify that massive salary. And when I started doing real estate and when cash flow started coming to me, and my cash flow was like $10,000 a month, which is still, a small amount compared to my salary, but it didn't really matter. What mattered was one day I simply stopped worrying about what would happen if my boss replaced me. As it turned out, my boss loved me and, never replaced me. And we went through, 15 years in a technology company and had a successful exit that I had stock in. So none of those bad things happened. But real estate, the gift that it gave me was this peace of mind that if one day something bad should happen, number one, my mortgage and my base expenses were all paid for by real estate cash flow. And number two, I had the ability to generate more money in real estate in the future. And that assurance that it gave me really changed my life. I became a different person. I started thinking in a different way. And what I realized was that not everybody has the ability to go out and buy 10 single family homes and do all of those things and go to banks and do some of the things that I did. But I think everybody deserved that peace of mind that I got from real estate and the cash flow. So I said, how can I give 100 other people or 1,000 other people this peace of mind? So the initial goal was, how do I take technologists that are working 14 hours a day in the San Francisco Bay Area and make their life a little bit more fruitful by giving them cash flow? So they're not as paranoid, not as crazy, and they work 12 hours a day instead of 14. And that was the starting point, right? And you kind of laugh at that. You go, oh, so you're trying to get them from 14 a day to 12 a day? And the answer is yes. Trust me, that 2 hour difference is a huge quality of life difference, right?
Absolutely.
That's how I got
I feel
started.
you.
And so the first, out of the first 100 investors, I think probably 80 were technologists and doctors. And so those people did come back to me and say, hey, we really feel great that you're buying and building these beautiful buildings, you're taking care of it. You send us this enormous update every month with videos and pictures, and you tell us about dogs biting tenants and tenants biting dogs, and all these kinds of things. And it makes us feel like we are there dealing with these problems, but not so much. We just get to read this monthly update and enjoy the paychecks. And so I became addicted to people telling me that I was making a difference in their life. And so it sort of grew from there. Now, of course, we have investors that are in all parts of the US, and they do all kinds of different things. But it really started with me trying to improve the work life of my fellow technology brethren. And I think that was a noble cause. Well, we're blessed that we currently don't have any projects open for investment, but we do have a lot of upcoming projects. And this, what we are blessed to have is we have construction projects and because of the real focus system, we've figured out some of the most amazing cities in the US to invest in, places you really haven't thought of that much. Boise, Idaho, Provo, Utah, right? Houston near the university. You know, like there's properties like Dalton, Georgia, places like Dalton, Georgia. And like, where the heck is Dalton, Georgia? Well, it's actually not serving any part of Georgia. It's serving the Chattanooga Metro in Tennessee, and is a phenomenal place to invest in because of all of the all ships rising effect that creates. So we look at these amazing places, St. George, one of the fastest growing cities in the US, and we have projects running there, both new construction and value add on an ongoing basis. And you can see them all on our website, which is growcapitus.com, GROCAPITUS.com. I can't tell you that I have an open project because one of the things that we're blessed with our investor group is most of our projects are sold out within 48 hours of them being announced. And the ones that are not are sold out that week. And so we don't have any open projects. We're always happy to bring in more investors so that we can scale as a company. I think what would be more interesting is for you to check out some of our content. The easiest way to check out content is simply Google my name, Neil Bawa, Neal, Bawa, B-A-W-A. I happen to be the only Neil Bawa on the World Wide Web. I haven't found anybody else that's called Neil Bawa. So that's both a blessing and a curse, because one day if somebody says something nasty about it, me, hasn't happened yet, but it will, you're going to read about that too, right? If you're interested in my data-driven methodologies, type in Neil Bauer Real Focus. If you're interested in how I use teams of virtual assistants to grow profits, I have 18 full-time virtual assistants. They function as team members. They work Pacific Standard hours. They work 8 to 10 hours a day, and they do everything in our company. There's no part of our company that virtual assistants don't do. They even have access to our bank accounts. Read-only access, but they still have access to our bank accounts. When you invest $100,000, our senior most virtual assistant is sending you a receipt. So bottom line is, if that's something that's interested, the use of virtual assistants to 10x your business, just type in Neil Bawa virtual assistants and you'll see content there about that. If you're in multifamily and you want to know how to improve the occupancy of your property, type in Neil Bawa Lasal, L-A-S-A-L. Lasal is a 5-step high-speed leasing methodology that I invented a few years ago that has now become a standard in our industry. So check that out if you're interested in leasing up your multifamily. So those are, I think, some of the best ways to connect with us. If you would like to listen to webinars about senior housing, student housing, multifamily, industrial, mobile home parks, those webinars are all at multifamilyu.com. That's multifamily followed by the letter u.com. As I mentioned, about 38,000 people a year attend our webinars.